From our studios in New York, here again is Stone Phillips.
Returning to our story, Hollywood director Jim Abrams has found a way to stop his son Charlie's previously uncontrollable seizures with, of all things, a diet consisting mostly of fatty foods. But as the family would soon find out, what seemed to be a successful treatment was not necessarily a cure. Here again, John Larson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Charlie.
It had been 2 years of the so-called eggs and bacon diet, and Charlie Abrams was feeling great. His parents, Jim and Nancy, couldn't have been more pleased.
Our experience with the diet was he was seizure-free and drug-free, and his EEG, which had been a mess, cleared up, and he was healthy.
Under the plan, most children go off the diet after 2 years to see if they have outgrown the disease. So in 1996, when he was 4 years old, it was Charlie's turn.
The lore of the diet back then was that if a kid has done as well on the diet as Charlie, that you can wean him off the diet, then he'll be fine.
Right.
But that wasn't our experience. We took Charlie off the diet, and his seizures came back as heavily, as profoundly, as destructively.
As many and as violently?
Yeah, as violently as initially.
In that same year, one seizure was so bad, Jim and Nancy rushed Charlie to the emergency room, fearing it would cause brain damage. After all they'd been through, the Abrams were back to square one.
So we called Dr. Freeman at Hopkins and said, you know, that was a refresher course we weren't interested in taking.
Dr. Freeman had 3 suggestions: do nothing, put Charlie on drugs, or put him back on the diet. Going back on the strenuous diet meant endless hours of meal preparation for the Abrams. Every bite had to be measured down to the gram. The right balance of high fat, high protein had to be exact. But for Jim and Nancy, the decision was easy.
So we instantly put him back on the diet.
Right.
And a day later, his seizures were gone.
Once again.
Once again, as dramatically, his seizures were gone. He was just fine.
The Abrams would try to take Charlie completely off the diet again 2 years later. But before we tell you more about what happened, you should know that as much as the diet was changing Charlie's life, it was transforming Jim's as well.
A father's desperate struggle to save his son from a terrifying
Jim says the
illness.
original broadcast of Charlie's story was like the breaking of a dam. Tens of thousands of emails and letters from families with epileptic children flooded Jim's office.
And one of the letters that we got from somebody who was on the diet and saw Dateline that night was a true story about another family who had found the diet and had to go through extraordinary circumstances in order to get their kid on the diet.
Jim contacted the family. The mother shared their story, and what happened next could only happen in Hollywood.
And you know, I actually got to call her up one day and say, Meryl Streep is playing you. And we made a movie about the ketogenic diet.
What have we got here?
In 1997, Jim told their story in a made-for-television movie, First Do No Harm. Once again, the diet was on the national stage, reaching families whose doctors had failed to tell them about it.
When he was on the drugs, he was a zombie. I mean,
Families like Jim and Jennifer Southerns of Palmdale, California. All 4 of their children suffer from epileptic seizures. After seeing Jim's movie, they first put their eldest son on the diet.
We went from 30 a day to none, almost.
the seizures were shrinking, and it was less. I mean, it was unbelievable. We were like, oh my God. You know, we were really happy, but we were also saying, you know, we could have did this a long time ago. You know, we could have not went through that, you know, years of drugging him, you know.
They put their other 3 children on the diet as well, and again, it worked. All 3 seizure-free.
I was really like mad when we found out about the diet, because we were like, wait a minute, we didn't even get that option. No one even came and said, okay, you can take this medication, but there's also this diet, so we could sit down and make the decision.
But that is changing as increasing numbers of doctors no longer consider the diet alternative therapy, but an accepted form of treatment. Even Charlie's first physician, Dr. Shields, is a convert. One recent study supports what the creators of the diet had known, that the diet is 50 to 70% effective in reducing seizures in pediatric epilepsy where drugs no longer work. Which may be why Jim Abrams, the Hollywood movie director, has written a new script. Not for some movie, but for his own life. He no longer directs Hollywood blockbuster comedies. He has chosen instead to dedicate himself to spreading the word of a diet.
How is the new life different from the old life?
I don't want to ever minimize how much fun it is to sit in an audience and hear the laughter when you've made a comedy movie and, you know, you remember the day we thought of the joke.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Can you remember refining it and filming it, and now you can sit in honestly in the audience and hear the laughter, and that's wonderful. But to pick up the telephone and be able to talk with someone who says, I got my kid back, and you were helpful in that, you know, there's nothing quite like it.
It occurs to me you're still in the business of making people smile.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, that's true. You know, that's a much broader smile. You know, that's certainly a longer-lasting smile than "Please don't call me Shirley."
Thank you for allowing me to appear before you today.
Jim now lobbies Washington for epilepsy research
It's really all about the dietitian.
and runs seminars nationwide for families and doctors.
Seizures.
Diet pioneer Dr. Freeman has joined Jim on the lecture circuit.
Jim was the engine that drove this and that enabled us to do the work to bring the ketogenic diet to a conference like today.
But back in 1998, when Charlie was 6 years old, the Abrams were still trying to wean their son off the diet. And again, Charlie's disastrous seizures returned. So the family tried one last time when Charlie turned 7. And this time, it worked. Charlie has been seizure-free ever since, and he now can eat virtually anything he wants to, just like other kids. Charlie is now an active 10-year-old in 4th grade. And on this day, performing at his 2nd piano recital. The song, A Gift to Be Simple.
So what was that like, to listen to that and to think about what he's been through and how this has played out?
Yeah. It was a long time ago, but it's still...
You haven't changed that much in 8 years.
Charlie has an older brother and an older sister who have had no medical problems. And, you know, we took very much for granted each stage of their development. With Charlie, each new step of development is a new miracle. And to watch him play the piano and smile and perform the way he does, to us, that's another miracle.
Jim Abrams has set up the Charlie Foundation.